Late afternoon. The golden rays of the setting sun stretched across the empty parking lot of Bistro 73, one of 12 restaurants in the culinary empire Marcus Donovan had painstakingly built. From the outside, Bistro 73 still looked pristine. A fresh coat of paint brightened its facade, flower beds flanked the entrance with neat symmetry, and a happy hour sign stood quietly as if trying to hold on to better days. But behind that inviting exterior was a far more troubling reality. Recent quarterly reports had sounded the alarm. Plummeting sales, a rise in customer complaints, and a concerning spike in staff turnover. For someone who had gone from food truck hustler to boardroom strategist like Marcus, those numbers were more than red flags. They were cracks in the foundation he thought was solid. He adjusted the faded baseball hat on his head, the kind of hat no one would expect a restaurant tycoon to wear, and glanced at his reflection in the side mirror of his pickup. Gone were the tailored Italian suits, the Swiss watches, and polished leather shoes. Today Marcus wore a worn-out navy t-shirt, jeans ripped at the knee, and scuffed work boots. The uniform of a bottled water delivery guy. A fake badge reading Mark Mountain Springwater hung from a lanyard around his neck, completing the disguise. "Time to lift the curtain myself," Marcus muttered as he grabbed a crate of water from the truck and headed toward the restaurant's back door. At 42, Marcus wasn't a stranger to sweat and hard work. He'd done it all. Cooking, delivering, cleaning late into the night. That hands-on experience had taught him a critical truth. People only show their true selves when they don't know they're being watched. And today, he wasn't relying on numbers or polished reports. He was going to see the truth with his own eyes and heart. As he stepped through the back entrance, Marcus stopped in his tracks. In front of him, a young woman sat slumped on a plastic crate, her head resting in her hands. Her uniform, black pants and a burgundy shirt with the Bistro 73 logo, was neat but couldn't hide the exhaustion in her posture. Her black hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, and dark circles under her eyes told a story her smile could not. "Tough day?" Marcus asked gently, setting the crate down. The girl jumped slightly, startled. She couldn't have been more than 25, her eyes reflecting both surprise and guarded caution. The name tag on her shirt read Emily. "Sorry, I didn't see anyone there. Are you the new delivery guy?" Her voice trembled slightly, though she tried to smile politely. Marcus nodded, putting on his most earnest look. "Yeah. First day. Name's Mark. Nice to meet you." He extended his hand in a friendly gesture, like someone who'd never set foot in a shareholder meeting. "I'm Emily," she replied, still keeping a polite tone but with a flicker of hesitation in her eyes. "Let me show you where to put the water." As they walked inside, Marcus kept his eyes open. The kitchen wasn't dirty, but it lacked energy. The cooks moved like ghosts, barely looking at one another. The sound of dishes clanging came from the back, punctuated by a harsh, barking voice. "That's Rick, the kitchen manager," Emily whispered, leaning slightly toward him. "Best to steer clear when he's in a mood." Marcus nodded. "Noted. Rick, observe closely." When they reached the storage room, Emily leaned against the doorframe, exhaling slightly, as if the few seconds of stillness were a rare luxury. Marcus opened the crate and pulled out a bottle of water, offering it to her. "Looks like you need this more than the stockroom does." She paused, clearly caught off guard. Her smile this time was real, not the kind reserved for guests, but a quiet acknowledgement of kindness. "Thanks. Honestly. That's the nicest thing anyone's done for me today." Marcus smiled back, though something in his chest tightened. That such a small gesture meant so much. It said everything about the culture here. "What happened here?" he asked softly. Emily opened the cap and took a long sip before answering. "Things started going downhill about 6 months ago. That's when Rick came on board. Before that we had a good team, great regulars. Now, We're all just trying to survive each shift." A sharp ding came from the kitchen, followed by Rick's voice slicing through the air. "Emily, table 7's been waiting 5 minutes. Move." Emily flinched almost imperceptibly, then turned to go. "I've got to get back," she said quickly. But just as she turned, she hesitated, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "You know, tips have been awful lately. Even though we're busy, I'm working just as hard, maybe harder, but my paycheck is shrinking. Everyone says it's the economy, but something just doesn't feel right." Marcus said nothing, simply watching as she walked away, steps brisk, posture composed, and a warm smile ready for the next guest, as if none of the weight she carried showed on the surface. Marcus had seen enough. In just a few minutes, his instincts had been confirmed. Waitress 73 was rotting from the inside out. Instead of leaving, Marcus made up a reason to head back to his truck, bringing in more supplies and positioning himself where he could observe both the kitchen and the dining room. What he saw only deepened his concern. Though the servers wore their smiles out front, every trip back to the kitchen was like walking into a storm. Rick unleashed verbal abuse like a weapon, sharp, relentless. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he snapped at a young male server who'd asked for a simple change to an order. "The kitchen's already swamped, and now I've got to deal with your incompetence." His name tag read Jason. Didn't respond, but Marcus saw the slight tremble in his hands as he loaded glasses onto his tray. It wasn't fear, it was fatigue. That specific soul-deep exhaustion of someone doing everything right and still getting blamed. Marcus knew that feeling. He'd lived it. Later, under the pretense of confirming delivery schedules, Marcus headed toward the bar, where he had a perfect view of the payment station. He watched as guests left 18 to 20% tips in cash beneath credit card slips. Textbook generosity. But when Emily or others came to collect, their faces darkened. Puzzled, disappointed, then resigned. Was it to make sense? Unless, during a lull, Marcus overheard Rick sneer to the bartender, loud enough for anyone to hear. These servers wouldn't know good service if it bit him in the ass. Then they have the nerve to complain about tips? "Back in my day, you worked harder or you got out." At that moment, Emily passed by, carrying a tray of dirty dishes. She didn't say a word, but the flush in her cheeks, the way her eyes dropped to the floor, it was shame. Not deserved shame, but inflicted shame. Marcus clenched his jaw. This wasn't just mismanagement, this was deliberate. As he left, he caught Emily's eye again and gave her a small nod, a quiet promise. Her faint smile in return was fleeting, but it struck deep. He would come back. He would start with her. Marcus Donovan wasn't the kind of CEO who hid behind boardroom glass. He'd built this empire with sweat, failure, and grit, and he wasn't about to let someone like Rick stain what he'd created. That night, Marcus sat in his home office, reviewing surveillance footage he'd arranged to pull from the restaurant. What he saw confirmed everything, and then some. Tomorrow, he would return, not as Mark the delivery guy, but as someone with authority, purpose, and a plan. The woman smiled warmly. "Emily is always so thoughtful. Every time we come here, we ask to be seated in her section." Marcus nodded. "Thank you. And do you feel the prices and service were worth what you paid?" The man responded without hesitation, his voice firm. "Absolutely worth it. We always tip well when the service is great. Today we left 25%. Marcus tightened his grip on his pen. That was the final confirmation. Someone was skimming tips. And that someone was Rick. As the middle-aged man stepped out of the restaurant, he turned slightly toward Marcus and lowered his voice. "Just between us, I've heard some of the servers here have been struggling lately. It's not right, considering how hard they work." Marcus nodded in thanks and continued circulating through the restaurant, having similar conversations with departing customers. The pattern was unmistakable. Every guest claimed they had left generous tips well above the standard rate. Yet the expressions of the servers painted a very different picture. The same wave of emotions, confusion, disappointment, and quiet frustration appeared again and again on their faces as they picked up payment. During a lull in the late afternoon shift, Marcus stood near the payment counter as Emily processed a bill. He had just watched a customer place two $10.00 bills on a $47.00 check, nearly a 40% tip. But minutes later, Emily returned to the service station with a troubled look, her brows slightly furrowed. "Everything okay?" Marcus asked casually. "It's just..." Emily hesitated, then forced herself to shrug it off. "Nothing. The guest said they left a bit more, but I must have misheard." Before she could say more, Rick appeared behind her, hand outstretched, without a word of thanks. "Hard slips. I need to batch out." Emily handed them over without protest, but Marcus noticed her jaw tightening slightly. A small reflex, but one that spoke volumes about long-held frustration. That evening, during the pre-dinner staff meeting, Marcus witnessed the clearest moment yet since going undercover. Rick stood at the front of the group, clipboard in hand, his eyes sweeping over the staff like they were numbers in a spreadsheet. "Tips are down again this week," he announced, voice icy. "Either customers are getting stingier, or you're not doing your jobs." The accusation hung heavy in the air, and his eyes locked on Emily. "Some of you didn't even average 15% yesterday." Emily blinked. "That can't be right. One guest even said they..." Rick cut her off, voice rising sharply. "Are you calling me a liar?" His face flushed. From anger or fear, it was hard to tell. "I do the numbers every night. Maybe stop chatting with customers so much and focus on being more efficient." The room fell silent. No one spoke up in her defense, but Marcus saw it in their eyes. Confusion, suppressed anger, helplessness. That silence, thick and suffocating, was its own damning proof. Marcus clenched his hands behind his back. There was no more doubt. Rick was deliberately skimming tips, paying out exactly 15% and blaming the staff for the shortfall. It was manipulation, blatant and cruel. That night, Marcus made a decision. He wouldn't leave after the restaurant closed. He would stay, hidden, and witness firsthand what Rick did when he thought no one was watching. 30 minutes after closing time, most of the staff had left. Only the cleaning crew, the closing bartender, and Rick remained, always the last to go. During the final rush, Marcus had quietly slipped into a cramped supply closet near Rick's office. The space was dark, filled with boxes of straws, napkins, and cleaning chemicals. But there was a small slit in the wall, likely from unfinished renovations, that gave him a partial view of the office. Like a one-way mirror, the strong smell of disinfectant burned his nose. His legs were numb from being crouched so long. But the truth was worth every moment of discomfort. He checked his watch. 11:43 p.m. At exactly midnight, Rick's heavy footsteps echoed through the quiet restaurant. He whistled off-key as he entered the office. "Let's see what we've got tonight," he muttered. Rick pulled out a folder labeled Daily Receipts. Inside were envelopes, each marked with a server's name. Emily, Jason, Alicia, and others. With practiced ease, he opened each one and separated the contents into two piles. Credit card slips on one side, cash on the other. He then retrieved a small notebook from his shirt pocket and flipped to the current date. Alicia. Lunch shift, $217.00 in sales. 15% tip, comes to $32.55. He mumbled the numbers, tapped his calculator, then counted out exactly $32.55 from the cash pile. The remainder, more than $20.00, went straight into his wallet without hesitation. He repeated the same method for each envelope. When he got to Emily's, he actually chuckled. Her Little Miss Perfect. Sales $312.00, which means $46.80 for you. He counted it out, then pocketed the remaining cash, close to $40.00. Then, as if on impulse, He pulled out one last $5.00 bill and added it to his stash. "For talking back to me in front of everyone," he sneered. Marcus clenched his fist so tightly that his nails dug into his palms. His heart pounded, not from fear, but from pure, silent rage. Emily deserved better. All of them did. Rick continued methodically through the envelopes until his wallet bulged with what Marcus estimated to be at least $150.00 from just one shift. At that rate, Rick could easily be pocketing over $3,000.00 a month in stolen tips. Once finished, he carefully resealed each envelope, now containing only 15%, locked his notebook in the drawer, and began his final walkthrough. Marcus held his breath. Only when he heard the beeping of the alarm system and the solid click of the back door did he dare to exhale. 15 minutes later, confident Rick wouldn't return, Marcus crawled out from his hiding place, his muscles aching with each movement, but inside him burned a singular emotion. His phone vibrated silently in his pocket. A text from the security team. Footage recorded, multi-angle, high definition, stored safely. Marcus pressed his lips into a firm line. Everything was ready. Now it was time to bring down this twisted little empire. And this time, he wouldn't do it alone. He'd let Rick bury himself with the very hands that stole from others. Under the faint glow of his phone, Marcus checked the folder one last time. Just as he suspected, each envelope contained exactly 15% of the server's total sales in combined cash and card tips, not a cent more. He photographed everything, then placed each item back with surgical precision, leaving no trace. Before leaving, he sent a text to his director of operations. "Emergency meeting tomorrow, 7 o'clock. I am in my office. Bring legal and HR. Also, contact Gordon Thompson at Riverside Financial for a full audit of Bistro 73. Then, a second message to his assistant. Find contact info for Artisan Provisions. I'm going undercover as their rep. Schedule a meeting with Rick Powell tomorrow at 2:00 p.m. As his truck pulled away from the darkened restaurant, Marcus's mind raced. Rick wasn't just stealing. He was calculated, manipulative, and that likely meant other crimes were hiding in the shadows. Marcus's anger simmered beneath the surface, but deeper than that was resolve. To protect. He thought of Emily, of Jason, of all the others doing their best to survive inside a broken system. They deserved justice, and starting tomorrow, they'd get it. At 7:08 a.m. sharp the next morning, the Donovan Restaurant Group's conference room buzzed with activity. Marcus, now back in his tailored suit and polished shoes, stood before a large screen displaying damning surveillance footage. Rick Powell has been running a tip-skimming operation for months, likely longer, he stated calmly. The HR director shook her head in disbelief. The auditors also found inventory issues, bottles of expensive wine marked as broken but never logged. High-XN liquor just vanished. Marcus's jaw tightened. So it's not just tips. He's been bleeding this place dry. The lead attorney stood. "We have enough to call the police right now. This is clear-cut embezzlement." Marcus paused, then shook his head. "Not yet. I want to handle this my way. These are my people he's been stealing from, especially Emily and the others. They deserve to see the truth with their own eyes." At 1:30 p.m. sharp, a new figure arrived at Bistro 73. Christopher Lawson carried just enough polish to command respect, and just enough luxury to tempt someone like Rick. Marcus had transformed completely. Business cards, a product catalog portfolio, even a forged email trail inviting Rick to an exclusive discount program. In his hand was a premium bottle of whiskey. With a charming smile, he said, "A small gift from our barrel-age program, just to thank you for taking the time." Rick's eyes lit up. The same eyes that used to scrutinize every dollar from his staff now glinted with greed over an expensive bottle that wasn't his. Marcus followed him into the office, the same place where, just hours ago, he'd watched Rick steal from his team one envelope at a time. Rick examined the whiskey label with a grin. Generous, I'm always open to mutually beneficial relationships. Marcus swallowed the wave of disgust rising in his throat. He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice as if sharing something confidential. Actually, we have a few discretionary policies for managers who place large volume orders. Benefits that don't appear on official paperwork. Rick took the bait immediately. His smile widened. Now you're speaking my language. Business flows smoother when management is properly incentivized. Marcus nodded and slid the fake contract across the table. Page 3 outlines the manager incentive program. Take a look. Rick flipped eagerly to page 3, eyes gleaming with anticipation. While Rick daydreamed about off-the-books perks, Marcus casually asked, managing a place this size on a standard salary must be tough. How do you make it work? Rick laughed, completely unguarded. You learn to seize opportunities. Most managers are idiots. They don't know where the real money is. Marcus nodded, playing the role of an eager student. Rick leaned back, smug, tapping his chest for emphasis. He servers think they're entitled to every dollar in tips. But who creates the environment that lets them earn those tips? Who carries the weight of the whole operation? Marcus, his finger quietly tapping the record button on his phone, smiled. You're damn right. Rick slapped the desk. I call it the management tax. Customers usually leave 20 to 25%. The staff doesn't need that much. I keep the extra as a performance bonus. They don't suspect a thing. I just blame the economy. Tell them guests are tipping less. He lowered his voice conspiratorially. Veteran. Emily, she questioned my numbers yesterday, in front of everyone. So today I taxed her a little extra. Teach her a lesson. Marcus clenched his fists beneath the table, his nails digging into his palms. He just needed a little more. Then it would be time. An inventory? Marcus asked casually, as if genuinely curious. That's easy. A few bottles of wine break each month. Top shelf liquor. Evaporates. As long as the paperwork looks clean, no one asks questions. That was it. Marcus slowly closed the portfolio, took off his non-prescription glasses, and said coldly, well, that was enlightening, Rick. Rick froze, eyes narrowing. Is there something wrong with the contract? Marcus gave a thin smile that didn't reach his eyes. It's not the contract that's the problem. He stood up, gaze steely. It's you. Rick blinked. Wait, what? Marcus extended his hand. Marcus Donovan, owner of this restaurant and 11 others. But I have to say, none of them have shown quite the level of creative accounting I've seen here at Bistro 73. The color drained from Rick's face. He staggered slightly, stammering, Mr. Donovan. This was hypothetical. A thought experiment, really. Save it. Marcus cut him off. He pulled out his phone and hit play. Rick's own voice filled the room, proudly detailing the management tax. Keeping extra tips. Punishing Emily, crystal clear, undeniable. There's nothing hypothetical about this, Marcus said sharply. And there is nothing unclear about the surveillance footage from last night showing you stuffing my employees' tips into your wallet like a thief. Rick's eyes darted toward the door. Marcus saw it. Don't bother. My security team is already outside, and the police are on their way. Not just for the tips, but for the stolen inventory, the missing liquor, and the falsified reports. Marcus adjusted his jacket, his voice low but commanding. But before they arrive, we've got one more thing to do. A meeting with the entire staff. 15 minutes later, every employee from all 3 shifts stood assembled in the dining room. Murmurs of confusion filled the space. Emily stood near the back, arms folded, exchanging worried glances with Jason and Alicia. Rick was flanked by 2 security personnel in black suits, standing near the hostess stand. Pale and silent, Marcus stepped forward, spine straight, gaze steady. For those who don't know me, I'm Marcus Donovan, owner of Bistro 73. A wave of shock rippled through the room. Emily's eyes widened. the water delivery guy, the health inspector, now the owner. All the familiar faces she'd seen were him. For the past 2 days, I've been undercover in this restaurant because something here wasn't adding up. His voice wasn't loud, but every word landed with weight. He laid out everything. The tip-skimming system, Rick's gaslighting, the way he blamed staff to cover his theft. Each revelation was like a pin bursting the bubble of silence that had hung over the restaurant. Then, he played the audio recording. Rick's voice echoed through the room, mocking, arrogant, gloating over his deceit. Emily dropped the tray she was holding. Her hand covered her mouth as tears welled up, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming relief of finally being believed. Marcus softened his tone as he looked around. I want to personally apologize to each of you. This happened in my restaurant, on my watch. I didn't protect you the way I should have. That ends today. The room went silent. No one moved. Everyone was still absorbing the shock. Jason was the first to speak, his voice hoarse. What happens now? Marcus nodded and signaled to his assistant, who wheeled in a cart stacked with thick envelopes. We've conducted a full audit. Based on sales records, video footage, customer statements, and average tipping trends, we've estimated how much Rick stole while he was here. You're getting that money back. With interest. Emily accepted her envelope with trembling hands. She opened it and stared. $4,782.00. Her knees nearly gave out. That amount. It covered rent, tuition, debt. It was everything she'd lost, returned in one moment. This is what you earned, Marcus said firmly. All around her, gasps and tears filled the room. Alicia clutched her envelope to her chest, sobbing. This covers my daughter's summer tuition. I thought I'd have to tell her she couldn't go. Rick tried to speak, his voice weak. You can't prove those exact amounts. Marcus turned to him, eyes like ice. We caught you stealing $147.00 just last night. These estimates are generous compared to that. He turned back to the staff. In addition to full reimbursement, each of you will receive a 20% bonus out of my own pocket as my apology. A wave of stunned murmurs passed through the room. Emily swayed slightly, dazed. The validation wasn't just financial, it was emotional. Trust being restored. Marcus continued. Starting today, all tips across my restaurants will be recorded at the point of sale, with digital receipts sent directly to each server. Management will have no access to alter or intercept tip records. As he spoke, a technician was already installing the new point-of-sale system beside the register. I know trust has been broken, Marcus said, but we won't rebuild it with words, only with action. Emily stepped forward, voice shaky. But why? Why go undercover just to find this out? Marcus gave her a gentle smile. The reports showed decent revenue, but unusually high staff turnover. Then came the phone call, the one that changed everything. A customer said they left a $50.00 tip for a server named Emily, who helped their daughter with a nut allergy. Emily whispered, "The Hendersons." Marcus nodded. When they called back and found out you never received it, they contacted our corporate office. One phone call. That was the thread that unraveled everything. He turned to the staff. I should have acted sooner, so I owe all of you an apology. Then Marcus looked toward Emily. But before we begin again, there's one more thing. He invited her forward, his voice clear and unwavering. Over the past 2 days, I've observed every person here, and Emily, even under the worst circumstances, you've maintained the highest standards of service. You supported your co-workers, protected your guests, and never once compromised your integrity. Emily held her breath. Bistro 73 needs a new manager, someone who understands the value of every tip, every hour worked, and that someone is you. Marcus extended his hand. his gaze locked on hers. "Do you accept the position of restaurant manager, effective today, with a path toward executive leadership if you want it?" A collective gasp swept through the room, followed quickly by thunderous applause. The entire team, many of whom had once doubted their own worth, now witnessed something they never expected. Emily, once the quietest among them, being handed the keys to the very place that had almost broken her. Emily stood frozen. She could barely believe it was real. It felt like a dream, one she never allowed herself to hope for after so many years of enduring in silence. I don't know what to say," she stammered. "You better say yes," Alicia laughed, her voice brimming with joy. "No one deserves this more than you." Emily took a deep breath. The years of self-doubt, the sleepless nights worrying about rent and tuition, they all seemed to lift from her shoulders. She looked Marcus in the eye, not as an employee, but as someone who'd finally been seen. "Yes," Emily said clearly, her voice strong. "I accept." The room erupted again, this time with tears of joy, not of sorrow, but of release. Marcus shook her hand. Not just a congratulation, but an affirmation of trust. From across the room, Emily's eyes found Rick. He was being escorted out by security, his usual arrogance gone, his face drained of all color. For the first time in months, Emily didn't look away. She stood tall, no longer overlooked, but now the new manager of Waitress 73. In the back office, 2 police officers reviewed the evidence Marcus had provided. Rick sat slumped in a chair, with no excuses left to save him. "Mr. Powell," the older officer said, flipping through the documents, "based on this material and video evidence, you're facing multiple accounts, including theft, fraud, and embezzlement." Rick stammered. "Surely there's some kind of misunderstanding. Nearly $40,000, 0 cents taken from staff and inventory isn't a misunderstanding," Marcus replied coldly. "I've authorized full prosecution and demanded restitution for all losses." As Rick was handcuffed and escorted out, the staff watched in silence. No one cheered, no one smirked. What filled the room wasn't triumph. It was peace. The kind that comes when truth is finally restored. Emily stood at the edge of the group, quietly observing. Just 24 hours earlier, she was lost in long shifts and dwindling bank balances. Now, she was in charge. And while the victory felt sudden, the weight of leadership was already resting on her shoulders. Marcus joined her. "Nervous?" he asked softly. "No, sir," Emily replied, her posture straighter. "Just trying to take it all in." "Good," Marcus nodded, "because leadership has no room for doubt. I don't promote people I don't believe in, and you've earned this." He led her back to the office, her office now, where renovation plans were spread across the desk. "Waitress 73 has been running below potential for too long," Marcus said, pointing at the blueprint. "I've approved a remodel, not to be flashy, just a fresh start, for both staff and guests." Emily leaned over the plans. "The bar's layout isn't efficient. If we move it here, servers would cut their walking distance in half." Marcus smiled. She wasn't just a great server. She was a leader. "You've got 2 weeks to submit your suggestions. This is your restaurant now. Make it work for your team." 1 month later, Waitress 73 looked and felt completely transformed. Not just in appearance, but in spirit. Under Emily's leadership, a place once burdened by tension now glowed with warmth and energy. Weekly meetings were held regularly. Financials were transparent. Tips were openly tracked. Jason was promoted to assistant manager, a well-earned recognition of his quiet reliability. The renovations were simple but thoughtful. Warm paint tones, softer lighting, a restructured bar that improved both guest flow and employee comfort. But the biggest shift was in the people. They trusted each other again. They worked as a team, and they took pride in what they did. Revenue rose 17%. No staff left, and those who had, many were asking to come back. Marcus returned for his promised follow-up visit, this time as himself. No disguises. "Didn't expect you so soon," Emily said, greeting him at the door with a confident smile. "Best inspections are the surprise ones," Marcus replied with a grin. "Then take a look around." Emily gestured to the smoothly running dining room. They took a seat at a quiet table in the corner. Moments later, Alicia approached with a bright smile. "Mr. Donovan, so good to see you again. Let me bring you something from the bar." Marcus nodded. "She looks happy. She's got a reliable schedule now," Emily explained. "And her daughter started college last week, first in the family." Emily told Marcus about all the improvements she'd made. Flexible scheduling, cross-training to support teamwork, and new community programs that had earned local attention. "You've done more in 6 weeks than most managers do in 6 months, Marcus said. "Had the ideas for a long time," Emily admitted. "I just needed someone to believe in me. And a team willing to change." An older couple walked past their table and stopped. "Emily, sweetheart, the place looks amazing. And who's this handsome gentleman? Don't tell me he's stealing our favorite manager away." Emily laughed. "Mr. and Mrs. Henderson, this is Marcus Donovan. Marcus, meet the Hendersons. Our guardian angels." Recognition lit up Marcus's face. "Your call to corporate started this entire transformation." "We just wanted to make sure Emily got her tip," Mrs. Henderson said. "She's always treated our daughter like family." "Sometimes the smallest actions create the biggest ripples," Marcus replied. As he prepared to leave, Marcus gathered the entire team in front of the bar. 6 weeks ago, I promised more regular check-ins. Today is the first of many. What you've accomplished here isn't just a turnaround, it's a model." He turned to Emily. "I'm officially promoting you to regional manager, overseeing Bistro 73 and 2 additional locations. Jason will take over as manager here, under your mentorship." The room burst into applause. Emily, once overlooked, was now the beacon. She was embraced by coworkers offering heartfelt congratulations. As Marcus headed for the exit, Emily walked him to the door. "Thank you," she said. "Not just for the promotion, but for listening, for caring." Marcus nodded. "Most owners don't get it, but the most valuable asset in any restaurant isn't the location or the menu, it's the people, the ones who bring it to life every day." He turned to look back. Staff moved purposefully, laughter bubbled from the bar, and warm light spilled from the windows like a heartbeat. Driving away, Marcus thought to himself, it wasn't that he suspected other restaurants were hiding similar problems. He just wondered how many more Emilys were out there, waiting for someone to give them the chance to shine. Bistro 73 wasn't just a restaurant anymore. It was a home, a family, a place where people were seen, valued, and empowered to become the best version of themselves.